All right. So I just wanted to first start out by saying we found a scene for the second exercise we'll be doing. Let me see if I can.
Nice.
So we watched Hugo during, I think it was Monday. And we picked the scene. We picked two different little clips from two different scenes for the project because we're focusing more on blocking this time. So using the scene from Hugo, we're going to send it out in an email after the meeting, focusing on blocking, also framing and camera movement. It's the scenes where from 9:13 to 9:37, where the part where the guard is getting pulled by the train. And then from 14:08 to 14:30, there's a few clips of Hugo walking into frame when he starts following the toy maker home. They walk into the camera and then he walks past and Hugo follows after. So those will be the two clips we used for the project this time.
We even said that we might be able to, like Mel did last time, we might even try to use miniatures because that would work. Because it's basically mostly tracking shots or the
Static shots.
Or the subject moving forward and the camera racking focus. So it's not really. What? Oh,
what?
Okay. Mel said, "LOL, the scene you hated." I didn't hate it. Don't say it like that. I didn't hate it. I was just like, oh, it's just very silly and a very big tone difference. That's all it was. A little jarring. That's all.
If you think it's good blocking, okay.
No, I mean, I had a few shots, but the thing with the shots in the house, because with that one, it's basically a shot of him like moving, of the camera moving as he moves, and then it's a shot of the dog standing still, just like the shot of him, of the camera moving at the dog. So the shots that we had in the house, they were good, but they were way too. They didn't have much movement. They were pretty. Is it static?
The whole room was kind of static during those shots, so we thought it was more about framing than it was about blocking. The characters weren't really moving around within the frame during those.
Yeah, and all of the other shots were a lot more complex. We wanted a simpler shot, just so we could focus more on like blocking, following the character's movement, following the camera, that kind of thing. And this movie, it has some beautiful shots, but a lot of them are very complex and they have a lot of movement. Like we mentioned, most of the shots in the movie are either moving all the time or they're very stagnant and just a person sitting down and talking. Or
it's like they have a million foreground and background elements walking all around.
Yeah, exactly.
Tried to pick some scenes that would be a little easier for us all to get. So it'll be the same thing as last time. We'll just try to mimic the scene. You can watch it. It's on Netflix. If you can find it somewhere else, let us know. But we watched it on Netflix.
We'll give you the exact time of the.
Yeah, the times, I'm going to put it in the email, but it's right here if you're looking at the screen right now. Those are the two clips. And we'll just try to kind of mimic that framing and like how they do it. And I think this one will be easier because it looks like this was shot with not anamorphic lenses.
You never know.
But so that's that. And then the shot list exercise that we gave out, I think we gave out last week. That's gonna be due 7/19. Same thing, we'll use that storyboarding exercise, the scene we used from there, and you just use your storyboard that you created and just kind of translate that into a shot list, and any other shots that you left out, add them into the shot list. Make sure you have all the shots that you think you would need for that scene to play through. So you want to have like pretty much all the shots so that you know how long it's going to take.
So in the email,
what?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say in the email, we'll let you guys know the dates for it as well, because.
Well, this one I already sent out. The shot list, you guys should already.
The other one too, but also we'll remind them when it's due. And this one's due, because I feel like giving a bunch of projects one after the other, people can get confused. as to like which project is due when.
Yeah.
Or can lose track. So we will also remind you guys when this one's due.
Yeah. So this shot list exercise is going to be due 7/19. I think that's a Thursday, I think, or maybe it's a Monday. It's a Monday.
So the 19th of July.
Yep, 19th of July, that'll be the shot list is due. It'll be based on your storyboard. It's pretty much just a more technical version of using your storyboard, and you just want to put all the scenes, all the different shots that you feel like you would need to actually get the entire scene. So that if you were going to shoot it, you would have all that information and you can make a shooting schedule out of it, which we'll do after we're done with that. And then the scene mimic is just to get more practice with cinematography, framing, blocking, all that. And then lastly, the last exercise, I'm adding that one today, is going to be right after we're done. Right after we're done researching the stuff about the green screen. We actually sent out some videos too today for you guys. But if you guys have a green screen, excuse me, or if you have somewhere that has like a solid background color, you can get a subject of some kind that doesn't.
Or even a screen like one of the examples gave as well. Like even put the green on your TV was also one of the examples that we saw.
And that's just to get just a sense of how to set it up if you were going to shoot a green screen shot. And then we will use that if you guys can edit, if you do have an editing experience, or if you do have an editing app at all, you could just try to key it out, see what it looks like, and see what you might need to do differently next time. If not, you still want to take part. What was that?
Do they have any free, sorry to cut you off, do they have any free editing apps out there?
For green screening, I'm not sure. I feel like they would, but I don't know. Does anybody know that?
Oh.
We'll check it out and see.
The thing with the green screen, from
this will
what
also
I've
be in the
seen,
email too.
the thing with the green screen, though, from what I've seen, is that there's a lot of little things in post-production that you need to do with green screening. So I don't know how well a completely free app would be able to do that. Just because from what we saw, it was very annoying. No, it was just a lot. It was a lot of little things with blurring and separating the subject from the thing that you're gonna key.
Yeah, I want us all to do the exercise just so you get more used to like lighting for it, setting it up, and kind of like
but it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm sure like if we can find it, it won't be perfect, but it'll.
We'll be going over the things that like the tips for green screening in a minute after we're done announcing all these things. But that's the kind of stuff you want to keep in mind whenever you're doing it, because there's a lot of different things that can mess it up. And they always say, if you get it right on the set, it'll make post-production so much easier because you can keep
I got a question.
Better. Yeah, go ahead.
So with the green screen, right? Can you also put other props in the green screen as well? Like say you want to have a table in a position.
Yeah, foreground elements actually add a lot to it. It makes the subject be able to interact with something in front of the green screen.
Right.
The video I sent, I sent a video on the WhatsApp group if you missed it. It was already on the syllabus, but out of all the videos of green screen, I think that was the most detailed, and it explained a lot of the do's and don'ts and what helps and what doesn't. And that one talks about that as well. It's on the WhatsApp. I sent it today, and it's like, I think it's 101 green screen tips.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
And that one talks about that as well, like adding other elements to your foreground and that kind of thing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, if you guys don't have an editing thing, I would still suggest trying to do this exercise. If you want to just shoot it, and we can kind of review your footage of the actual green screen and say whether it would probably work or not, like just from eyeballing it, because then you need to have it like really evenly lit and stuff like that. So it's just like a way to kind of get a sense, not exactly like if you could in a camera, but we'd be able to give a little bit of a suggestion if the footage would not work.
Because like I said, the keying is probably going to be a little annoying from what we saw. It's a lot of little detail, and we don't expect it to be perfect. It's more about, like Coda said, though,
it's going to be perfect
spacing and the lighting and that kind of thing.
Just like 10 to 20 seconds of footage really is all you would need. It's just to get a sense of it. forgot to put that.
Honestly,
Like a
we
10,
can't really
20
say it's
seconds.
going to be perfect, Brent, because even professional movies don't make it perfect. And they have like professional
That's
editing
them.
software.
They ain't dealt with me.
So,
I have raw
Okay.
talent.
Okay, good luck.
Listen, I think perfection is a state of I wouldn't say a state of mind, but I think it's a matter of your opinion. What is considered?
No, I agree. There are creative ways you can go around getting around, even if you don't have the technical stuff that is like
definitely.
needed for it. There's are creative ways to go around green screen. Even I think we sent one of the videos Brian sent where it was showing how you could do a projector behind like a car
Oh, wait a
or a
minute.
car scene, so that you don't have to use
Right.
a green screen every time. You can also do, I think
Right.
they call it
Another
like the poor
video-
man's process or something.
Yeah,
You
and
use
another
Right.
video that he
that.
sent, another video that he sent as well that I forgot to send. I'm going to send it because he sent it last minute. Was about projectors as well, and we'll go into that more later. But like how that can substitute some things that a green
Yeah,
screen
send
can
that.
do.
Send that.
But yeah, so like I just mean as far as like making it look perfect when it comes to like separating subjects and keying and stuff like
Well, I
that.
can't. Just
That
like you
is-
said, looking perfect. I feel like it's a matter of somebody's opinion because I watched this movie. What is it with Liam Neeson? What's the name? Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson?
Whatever his name.
Liam
Yeah.
Neeson. Yeah.
Liam Neeson. And with him and Lawrence Fishburne in this movie with a truck in, and they had a green screen or whatever CGI explosion. It was horrible. It was so horrible, and I'm like,
oh yeah, well that's what I'm saying. Like just because it's a professional movie doesn't mean it's good, and you can tell when it's
right.
bad.
But here's my thing. I'm pretty sure in post production they probably was like, oh, this could work. But when you look at it on a, remember, I think it was you or was it you or Brian was talking about when you're shooting something, it looks good on the camera, but when you put it on different screens, it look totally different because of the color.
Yeah,
and-
Brian was talking about that.
Okay, yeah, I think that's where they messed up at. It probably
Yeah.
looked good on their camera, and they would have like, yeah, go ahead, we're good.
But the issue,
We'll talk about it in a minute, like once we get into the green screen stuff.
the
But
issue
like
that you're going
but
to find out with
the
green
main
screen is
issues with
more-
green screening are lighting and not planning your shot by like having the foreground actor, the person that's actually in the shot, the subject, not lit properly to the background. Like if you have a sun that's in the shot in the background green screen footage and it's over to the left of the screen, then you want the light to be coming from that same angle so it looks realistic, and you want the lighting to be matching. If it looks warmer, is it snowing, does it look colder? You want to match all that with it, and you can do some of that in post, but if you get it right on set, it looks a lot better.
And also
the
the
issues come
main
into play when that
complication that
happens.
I mean, the main complication that I mean when saying that it's not going to look perfect is in post-production and is in keying, because like it's a lot of little details with blurring and separating and all this kind of stuff. So many little things that can take it from looking very amateur and very like obviously green screen to a little more believable and a little more, forgiving. So it's also stuff like that most even professionals don't get right every time. So it's not like we're expecting perfection from exercises like that.
Yeah, the main reason for the exercise is just to kind of get your hands out, get your hands on it and kind of see what went wrong and what didn't, so that if you do have a green screen shot sometime in the future, you can kind of have a better idea of what you need to get done for it, instead of just figuring it out on set for your actual project.
Or trying to fix a bunch of things in post.
Which is really time consuming, yeah. All right, so those are the exercises though. Does anybody have any questions? We'll go over the green screen stuff in this meeting, so I was just pointing that out before we start.
Okay. No, continue, sir.
Okay, and then the last
And
thing I'll
ma'am.
say is next week, guys, we are not having anything, no meetings. Next week is 4th of July week, so have a good one. And
What I mean, so what? It's work. Nobody got time to celebrate. We here to work.
well, we're going on vacation, so we won't even be here.
Yeah, we deserve a vacation. We've been totally grounded. I was also gonna say, unfortunately, with the Friday, because we were gonna have like an emergency screenwriting meeting this Friday, since last Friday there were some issues. But this we're gonna have to extend that to next Friday. Oh wait. are we even gonna be home next Friday? No, 2 Fridays from now. I'll let you guys know the exact date, but it's just because we won't have time to get everything done with like the trip and everything. I really hope you guys understand. It's just we've been working a lot and doing a lot with our own personal stuff and this stuff. And this is kind of like the only time that we managed to get a break in.
So you're going for 2 weeks?
No, we're gonna be gone for a week, but like this Friday and next Friday will be busy. Like we'll be coming home on next Friday.
Yeah, we'll be coming up late at night. So she's talking about for
The screenwriting.
the screenwriting small group.
Oh, the small group. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just, since everyone already is here, I just thought,
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Oh, okay.
Keep it
Yeah.
small group.
On that note, this may or may not be my last meeting for a while because I am unfortunately being shipped out on deployment. So
Oh, man.
I'll have to find out what the situation is over there when I get overseas. So keep sending me the emails with the passcode and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, if I can't make it to the meetings, I can't make it to the meetings. But
well, hopefully you can send us an update still alive, just so we know.
yeah, I'll
You'll be fine.
yeah, when I get back, yeah, I'll be the first one back in the meeting. So just keep sending the emails out.
Well,
Thanks for
good
letting us
luck.
know.
Was it 2 weeks?
Oh God, no, I don't even know. See, that's the thing about you're in the military,
Yeah.
like they tell you, and then like I
And
can't
then it
tell you,
changes.
I can't
Yeah,
tell you where
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Of course
but
not. Yeah.
all you need to know is deployment, and that's just like, ugh. Like if it was a
Right,
Getting
right.
if it
internet
was a
service,
TDY,
getting, yeah.
if it was TDY, I'd have
Right.
some answers for you. But this is a deployment, so like I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
Right,
allowed to
right.
tell your relatives, like your close
Nope.
relatives?
Nope.
Yeah, you could tell them certain stuff. Like
I
Or
never
can
told
you
none
at
of
least
my
tell them where
relatives.
you're going?
it depends on where it is. Like
Mm.
it really all depends. Like for this one, they're smart about it. So like they'll give us like a general area, but they won't give us like a designated
Right.
spot.
Yeah.
They're
No
pretty slick
designated
about it.
country?
We can't even get, because they gave us date. They're like, yeah, technically we're supposed to be there now. Like I'm supposed to be there like 2 days ago, but they're so slick about it. They're like, oh, well, we have delays, so we're not going today. We're going like 3 days from now. So it's their slick way of like giving you a date without actually giving you a date. So there's
Right, right.
absolutely no way that
I mean, that's fair. It's for security reasons. Like you don't want to
they're,
leak.
It
You
is.
don't
they're
want
very
to
slick.
risk
So
anyone's life.
So
Yeah.
not even I have the answers to that. All I know is I'm still here, so I'm able to do this meeting, but I do know at some point, like I'm going to be overseas. So
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
ask
yeah.
you, like, at some point.
How is that going
after
to
the meeting-
interfere with your Kill Mary?
it's terribly going to interfere with it so terribly. I'm so pissed off right now. They
Right.
literally snatched the whole year from me, because back in January when I started is when all that stupid Capitol riot stuff happened. So like I had to be on orders for that. I think I told you guys about that.
Yeah.
So like that literally snatched like a whole 3-4 months out of my life for that.
Right.
Then the little break in between, and then now I had to postpone it. But I only have like 1 or 2 scenes to shoot, and the second scene is not really a scene, it's more B-roll. So I might be able to put together a trailer at the least while I'm over there, because I'm bringing my computer. So hopefully I'll be able to edit and whatnot. But yeah, I'm hoping I'm hoping to be
Hopefully
back
it'd
by
be
this
like
year.
a month.
Right.
Hopefully it's
or
just a
maybe-
base situation. Like they need you there for like a head count or something to make sure.
No,
they
it's a
have
head
people.
it's a
count.
deployment. It's an
Yeah.
actual deployment. Like
Oh, frick. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It
Yeah.
could be
Well,
1 month into a year. You could be
I
going a
mean,
whole year.
I mean, at some point, I was gonna ask you like how you managed to balance both, because honestly, it seems like a lot. But
see, that's the thing. Last year I was good. I was all good last year, and then all this freaking riot stuff happened, and then everything changed. Like now they're like on high alert. You know, you can't go. You have to let us know where you're going if you're leaving the state and all this other stuff. And you can get called in at a moment's notice for the riot. Or, the Capitol. After the Capitol stuff, it's just like it's not cool to be in the military anymore. And that's the thing. Like I'm in the state. I'm here in the United States, and the fact that like I can be deployed like within my own state is kind of crazy. I can get activated here, right here in the United States, is like out of this world. You know what I mean? I've never in a million years would I thought that like I would be responding to some stupid shit like what
But
happened.
that's the military, isn't it? Like, unfortunately, you never know what's gonna happen in the world.
Yeah, but when you
Yeah.
expect, they tell you it, but you're expecting to get a phone call to get on a plane to go overseas somewhere. That's what you're expecting. You're not expecting to go get on a phone call to go to the White House to whatever. You're not expecting that.
Right,
It's like
Yeah.
something out of a movie, like literally. Like it was
right,
like,
right.
Yeah.
Like Olympus down or something.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're able to still finish your thing and edit it and all that stuff, and hopefully you're able
Yeah,
to
man.
come in the meetings or
Hopefully you
whatever.
get some time over there.
Definitely have some good feedback and good tips and stuff for us.
Yeah,
If nothing
especially on
else,
this.
hopefully you have some cool stories to tell when you get back.
I'm all done with I have stories now, but I'm kind of done.
Yeah.
Try to look at it through the positive here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for letting us know. Either way, we appreciate
Yeah,
it.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. And then last thing, guys, for July 12th, we're going to be studying the stuff we skipped over when we were going over the storyboard meeting. So that'll be this stuff during July 12th. Shot log, scene take log, scouting checklist, and how to film a romance scene. And then we'll add in the other things that we skipped over, which was marking and blocking actors, using stand-ins, and filming action scene. So those can kind of all meld together. These shouldn't take too long, so we'll be able to do all that in a meeting, I hope. But yeah, that's it for the like announcement stuff. All right, you can go ahead and get into it. Does anybody have any questions?
About the announcements, not the other.
A hard no.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna start with the green screen since we're gonna be doing a exercise with green screen stuff. So first of all, you want to make sure you have even lighting on your back of your green screen. If you look at this little diagram, you can see most people use this setup. If you have 5 lights available, it's great because 2 lights for the background, 3 for the like 3 light setup for the subject with the key light, fill light, and the backlight. And you want to make sure you light them separately so that none of these shadows from the subject go onto the green screen, or none of the green screen light comes back onto the actor and spills on them, making it harder to key. Let's see, I think I have some pictures of stuff. So you also want to make sure that the subject's not wearing anything that's close to the background color. If you're using a green screen, you may want to make sure she's not wearing this green color right here, because then that's going to happen. She's going to blend in with this green screen when you try to key it out. Same thing if you're using a blue screen, you want to make sure they're not wearing anything blue. And that's why you would use a blue or green screen most of the time, is because whatever subject you're using, if you need them to be in a certain color, like I know in Spider-Man, they had the Green Goblin on a blue screen because he's green, so he wouldn't key out with the green screen. So you can really use any color, but usually it's green or it's the blue screen because they're the furthest from skin tone. So it's the easiest to key out without making people look translucent and weird. But you just want to be sure that nothing in your on your subject is going to be green. And you also want to be aware of anything that's see-through, things like glasses, cups, if they're holding a glass, a drink or something like that, bottle. You want to be aware that those things are going to be seen like see-through. So you're going to have, when you try to key it out, those things are going to key out with it. So just be aware of all those types of things when you're going on a green screen. The main thing you want is to separate your subject from your background and have your background evenly lit so that you can key it out easily and then make it look like they are part of that scene. Let's see. You also want to be aware of like shadows. If there's a shadow on the green screen, it's going to not key out properly. It's going to leave a shadow on whatever background you have. If you're trying to say that he's in a sunny outdoor woods and he has a really thick shadow right here, when you go to key it out, that shadow is going to be on the tree or whatever's in the background right behind him, and it's not going to look real anymore. So you also want to be aware of that. And you also, like I said earlier, you want to be aware of which way the sun would be in the actual footage you're going to use. So you kind of want to know what footage you're going to use in your background in the green screen part before you even shoot the subject. That way you know, is the sun coming from the left? Is it even okay for him to be lit from this side? Or is the sun coming from the right? So does it make more sense for me to light the other side of him? Green screen with glasses, they usually, so Mel's asking, good point, how do they green screen characters with glasses? They tend to try to have them look directly at the screen, because anytime you turn,
Not around too much.
if you turn around too much, you're gonna have like the little part of the glasses go and you're gonna see it through their glasses, the green screen or the blue screen. So they usually have them look directly at the screen, or I mean, you can do it. You just have to hand key around them, which takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. But you know, the bigger your budget is, the more you can do in post. But for a small budget,
Even if you're not looking directly at the screen, they say try not to have them move their heads too much and stuff like that.
yeah, because it will cause issues later. So you want to make sure it's
Same
like
thing with
evenly
using
lit.
props, I guess, since we're already on this topic. Do you want to
Mhm.
mention props as well, since we're already on this?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
No,
I
you.
was already talking about like the bottles and the glasses. What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, since we're already talking about props and stuff, you want to talk about moving things, like a sword or
Yeah, some
something.
objects are reflective.
Right, right. So some objects are, you want to be aware of reflective objects as well, like she's saying, like a sword, any kind of metal or anything that's very shiny, it'll reflect the light because you're going to have green light coming through. Green screens typically give off a lot more light than a blue screen, which is, in that circumstance, you may want to use a blue screen instead, because blue screens are a lot darker. They, as you can see, it's darker. It doesn't let off as much light as the green screen would. And you can see the green screen, when it's evenly lit, it's very bright. It turns kind of like a more of a yellow hue, and it often spills off onto the character or the subject, depending on how far away they are from the green screen. So you want to make sure that people are far away from the green screen as you can get them, so that that light doesn't reflect from the green screen back onto them, because then they'll have this little outline around their head that's green, and that'll try to key out when you try to key out the green.
So why, question?
Yeah.
So why not just use blue screen period? Is too much with the lighting? Is a problem
Blue screen,
trying to get?
it takes a lot more light to even light it up, and it's not as cameras capture twice the amount of data in green than they do with blue and red. So the green is actually a little more clean, the green channel. So when you're getting into editing, you have green, blue, and red channels. And if you have a green screen, it's going to be able to capture that green screen better, so it can key it out easier than it would if you had blue or red, because those will have those like the little specks and stuff, because it didn't capture it perfectly unless you have really good lighting. And especially because blue is darker, so it takes more light to light in the first place.
So one video, it kind of broke it down as like, if you're shooting a darker scene, you might want to use a blue screen. If you're shooting a scene that's outside, like with a blue sky and like very bright, you might want to use a blue screen. Scenes like that would require require less light, actually, because there's also a lot more bleed through, because the green screen is so bright, some of that green bleeds through onto the person's clothing or their hair, and so it can have its pros and cons. There's a video, I'll send it in the WhatsApp group. It wasn't the syllabus, but for those of you that didn't watch it or missed it,
Let me see if I can. So like green screen spills kind of like this on her coat. You can see there's some green hues. It's coming off, it's reflecting off the background and coming onto her. So when they get into keying it and they say key out this color, so basically you just tell the computer, hey, I don't want this color in the image, so take it away, and it'll do that. But if there's any of that color coming on like her cheek, her coat right here, it's going to make it key out as well. So it's going to make your keying a lot harder. And that's why you want to try to Be aware if you're gonna have a very bright background, like if you're gonna be out in the sun, if you're gonna do your green screening outside in the sun, and it's very bright. That's why you might want to use a blue screen. Since it is darker, it doesn't reflect as much, but green screens reflect quite a bit. So they're better for like low light situations, and they're better for really getting a nice key if you light it properly and you don't have those reflective things and you don't have see-through items. But if you do, you might want to use a blue screen instead. And I mean, honestly, you can use any, like I said, but green screen and blue screen are the main ones because they're the furthest from the skin tones. You don't want people's skin getting keyed out. Like if you had a red screen, their skin would kind of key out with it.
So basically there are like pros and cons to both, and it really depends on your situation, your lighting, your editing.
What you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what we saw. I sent 2 videos that
If
I
it's
think
something like that, like if it was spilling onto his hand and you key it out, it's gonna either leave it like that, making it really weird looking, or it's gonna key out part of his hand with it. So it really depends.
So I sent like 2 videos from the syllabus that I think explain it really well. One is even from a director explaining like, or a cinematographer, I don't know what he is, but like a big movie, and he was showing the process of what they were doing with the blue screen and movement and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really recommend like watching the videos in the syllabus of the green screen stuff. It really goes in depth of how you can these tips, and it's a lot easier to see visually. I can't really find the pictures that'll show exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, this as far as the green screen, as far as the green screen goes, sorry to cut you off, honey. As far as the green screen goes, that's why I sent a lot of the videos through the WhatsApp, because it was like there's way too much. We're not going to be able to cover it to break it down in a meeting. And so I just sent those, and I also sent the ones that Brian sent talking about like movement with a car, and also the using a projector. And what the video with the projector didn't really go over was like the pros and cons, in the sense of like, you can use a projector to it actually does replace a lot that you could use with a green screen, but it also depends on the quality of your projector. And it also, from what we saw, it's more of a, in dark situations with blurry backgrounds, big movement kind of thing, or a very static shot kind of thing. So
Well,
everything has its place from what we saw.
The video I sent kind of did go over the quality of, because he recommended this new, I've never seen, that's why I sent it. This is some new stuff to me. Like it's a new projector that can project like 2 inches away from the wall, which is amazing. There's another video I didn't send to you guys, but it's the same Film Riot guy. And he was talking about, I so envy this guy right now, because he has another process he goes through now. He's trying where he doesn't use a green screen, he uses a white, and he uses green RGB lights to create the green.
Huh.
Oh, I've heard of something that too.
Yeah, so you don't get the same spill as you would from the green screen, because when you hit the green screen, you put light on it, the light just bounces over.
Yeah.
If you talk, so that's the thing about green screen. So it's a very big, so you know how the big taboo is to say, well, we'll fix it in post. That's a taboo thing. It's the number 1 taboo. The number 2 taboo is to say, oh, we'll just green screen it, because people say green screen. And I hate hearing green screen and easy, because you hear that you go there behind the scenes and we go,
that was like one of the main tips. Yeah, it was like, don't
it
use
was just easier to green screen it. I hate hearing those 2 words in the same sentence, because green screen is not an easy thing. The process looks simple, but once you go to the process of actually learning how to light for green screen, it's very difficult. And
the post-production, it seems insane too, like all the little things
the
and
part
all
that the
details.
post is part 2. The post-production is the second part, and it's really hard to go into green screening without going over that realm and getting into the editing. So it is a cinematography point, but there's 2 parts to it. There's cinematography, and then there's the actual post-production part that makes it all work together. And it's kind of hard to describe one without the other.
Right.
So
But definitely one of the main tips he gave was like, if you can, don't use green screen. Only use it in like certain circumstances. Don't use it all the time. Don't use it for every shot because it's hard. It's going to be a lot of post.
So you know how Lakota had just mentioned how you want to separate your character from the green screen. But if you're doing full body shots where you need like the floor to be green screen and then the ceiling to be green screen, it's kind of almost impossible not to get spill. So you have to know, you have to be an experienced CGI artist or somebody that knows how to do the After Effects to be able to key all that out to make that work, because sometimes it is going to be almost next to near. But not only that, it's hard enough as it is, just a basic wall with the green screen. Because we dedicated a class to, when I was in film school, we dedicated a class to green screening, and they had a studio with the whole room was all the walls in the room were green, and one light just lit the whole room up. Like for some reason, there's something about that color. It just bounces everywhere. And no matter how much we pulled the person away from the walls, like there was always this spill. It was just hard to get around and hard to avoid. So it's like, but then, I gave them footage to people and I was like, there's no way he's going to be able to key that out. And they do. And I'm like, okay, so this guy knows what he's doing. So, I mean, it's really about skill. It's a lot of it is a skill level, like how well you know how to key. There's some things you can't fix, like having a shadow on the wall, that's unfixable. Sometimes the wall can be too bright and you won't be able to key at all. So it's just having a good eye for it. And then like Lakota's saying, like knowing what the shot is going to be so you know where to actually put your shadows on your subject.
Yeah, one of the videos even talked about lighting and shadows and stuff like that. I thought was really good. But yeah, that's what I mean, Brent, when I mean that like it's not going to be perfect because there's so much that goes into it.
Yeah. Now I know that.
Yeah.
I was just playing around.
And as far as
I try to have the mentality that everything I go into, I'm gonna give it 110%. So in my eyes, it's gonna be perfect because I'm doing it the best of my ability.
If you give 110% and it's not like 100% perfect, that's okay. That doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean you did a bad job. That doesn't mean you failed or whatever. That's kind of like how I like to look at it, because we're learning and we're like learning all about this and growing, and it takes a lot of technique, and not even the professionals can do it right. This is just like a basic, so we know the basics of like these little things.
We're
like,
the new generation. They're old. Those old professionals don't know what they're doing with this new technology.
we don't have access to that. So
Yeah. I'm joking. I'm joking at this point.
Yeah, no, I'm just
as far as like the whole thing with the projector is, it looks amazing.
Yeah, send that to me. Let me see that.
Yeah, I did. It's in the WhatsApp.
Thanks.
But it's in the WhatsApp group. But the thing with that I was kind of like weary about is just because we don't feel like, the thing with Film Riot that sometimes is a little hard is just because he recommends a lot of stuff that's ads, and we've bought some of their stuff. We know people that bought some of their stuff, and it's kind of hit or miss. So it's kind of scary to like recommend a thing like this is the overall thing that you should buy, because then if people buy it because of us or because of our recommendation, we don't want to, get an issue because of that. And that is like a big thing that we've seen people kind of complaining with Film Riot, is just that it's a lot of ads now, and it's kind of hard to see like if the thing is actually quality or if it's not. And so explaining the pros and cons, just so like, this looks awesome, but just know some cons, it's not going to work for everything. It's not going to fix your entire green screen issue, but it can do a lot. That's just something we wanted to,
Gotcha.
But yeah, so all right, I'm gonna go back to just going over my list here, and I wrote down some of the videos. What?
I said also that does not look cheap either.
What?
The projector.
I'm sure it
Oh,
wasn't
it's not
that
cheap? I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have been cheap.
Yeah, but it was really interesting to see like, the different how we're
What's really interesting is now they have stuff like in The Mandalorian, they have stuff like this, which is a huge, like almost
Big help,
360 projection screen behind them, and it's like a virtual camera within that realm, and so they can
Right.
do whatever they want, which is
That's
interesting.
awesome.
And they kind of match it to the foreground whenever they're in there. They have their editors actually in the room with them. So then the
Really?
editors are moving the virtual camera along with the cinematographer moving the actual camera. So then whenever, I don't know, let's say the Mando's in front, he's actually in the scene, but then there's background and there's a stormtrooper in the back. Well, they'll match whatever movements the person's doing.
Get out of here.
So yeah, no,
And
it's
that's
crazy.
definitely one
That's what
thing,
you can do when you have unlimited budget. But
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah,
also
yeah,
one thing
yeah.
that I got excited for, because looking at that, I was like, holy crap, this is new now. And this is like
they
like this
do
new technology. But
they
imagine like
use something
10
like
years
this.
from now,
You can
this
see
might
like
be
the
accessible
screen
to the
is
public
around
like
them.
that
The
new projector.
ground is made to look real, but the rest is like just a screen behind them, and they're able to do that virtually while they're watching. I'd recommend watching the behind the scenes on it because it's actually really interesting.
Okay.
But it was
that's
just
like
so
a
cool.
massive budget. You know?
That's when you got money where you can actually make creative minds. These people who are very creative, like Brian was saying, with the skill set that they can make anything happen. You know, with the right budget and the right creativity, you can make anything happen.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, look at this right now. Yeah, this is new innovative technology. But even with the projector that was shown in that video, I feel like a few years from now, they will become cheaper and cheaper and more accessible and higher quality for, everyday filmmakers to use as well. Maybe not this level, but I feel like things like that projector and even a little bit beyond might become more accessible over time. So that's also really exciting.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not worried about that future. I'm worried about right now.
If you just look at it, it's crazy. Like just how
Right,
expensive.
Priscilla?
So, and it also gives like this kind of thing would give the actor, instead of looking at something to pretend like they're seeing, they can look at it and actually see it because it's like a panoramic screen for them.
Right.
So they're seeing a car getting ready to crash into them instead of just pretending to with a green screen. But so I think it has really good application and it would be really cool.
So see, James
like
said
very,
virtual
very
production. So see, James said too, virtual production is the future for indie production as well. The technology that powers that massive volume studio is actually publicly commercially available. So yeah, there is stuff like that, like in the video with the projector and stuff like that. I think that every day it's going to become
commercially available. Whoa, that's some hell of a budget.
Right, yeah, not at the level they're at, but
yeah, but like little thing like that projector, for example. Yeah, it's probably not cheap, but it's probably like mid-level, and then like a year from now, they might come up with something even higher quality, and that will become even cheaper.
Yeah.
Daniel,
that was an interesting thing to point out, but let's get back to greens. Well, actually, Daniel, you have your hand raised?
Oh, okay. I was just supposed to write it in the thing before. Hi again. Sorry about that. I took a nap. I just woke up not too long ago.
No, that's no problem.
And also, it doesn't always need like a big high budget to do this stuff too, because even myself, like I have some people part of Slated that can do this stuff now. Like I'm getting some people that are part of the Slated, making a part for green screen. But what I'm trying to say is it doesn't require a big budget. You just need the connections.
Yeah.
And be smart about it.
Just to get yourself better.
And like Brian said, a really good editor.
Yeah, like it's
a really good lighter and lighting too.
Yeah,
somebody could light that.
That's why it's important for the cinematography aspect, more so for this for the exercise I want you guys to do is more for on set, less post-production. If you do have post-production, do it. If not, just worry more about on set getting it right, because that's more important. If you're not going to be the editor, you don't want to give your editor some crappy keying footage and think this is going to turn out great, when really you didn't capture the right things you needed for them to make it look great. And they possibly still could, like Brian's saying, like you can do some really good stuff in editing, but you want to try to get it as good as you can on set, so that it's a lot easier for the editor, because it'll turn out a lot better.
It's amazing how technology is evolving every day.
Definitely. All right, so I'm going to go through my list of stuff, and anybody have any questions, just let me know. First of all, even lighting for the background, you can use the things that we were talking about in your camera, like zebras or false color, to see if the screen is evenly lit. Zebras will show you if there's any zebras showing up on the green screen itself. It'll show any areas that are brighter than the rest. And then if you have the false color, you might want to have it around, the green screen should be around like mid gray, which would be about 55 IRE, which would show that the whole screen is lit around that same level. And if you see different colors in the background and you're using false color, that means the green screen is not evenly lit. And you want to move your lighting to try to get it as evenly lit as possible. So just try to get it at the same angle and the same distance for your lights that you're pointing towards the green screen itself. I think I already said this one, but place your subject as far away from the green screen as possible to reduce any spill that you get any outlining on your subject.
Mm-hmm.
I said this one already. Let's see. You may. Yeah, I already said that one. Oh, they said consider like tripod shots, static shots. You can use things like sliders and stuff, but you want to make sure you have really smooth movement. And you want, if you're doing any kind of movement, you need, what is it called, Brian? Like when is it markers? What do you call it when you're like
Markers.
It is markers?
The
Yeah.
markers.
And that way, when you're actually, if you have any movement, it'll be something like this, or it'll be like green tape usually.
No, it wouldn't, but oh,
These
depending.
little X's. Oh, here, this lady has it. You can see the little marks behind her. That'll help.
They recommend green tape if you can, of like a darker green or a lighter green, just because it's easier to key out later, as opposed to like actually having to.
So this is just so that whenever you are having any movement, you can see where in the background the movement should go. So if there's a building right behind her and it's this little green tape, if we move the camera to the right and now she's over here and the tape's over to the left, you want to know where that building should be in the background now. So these little pieces of tape or whatever they are should be showing you kind of what elements of the background are where at any given moment, which is why you have these different shapes. So some people use different shapes. Some people just use a bunch of markers like this. It depends on how complex you're doing it and whatever your process is. But you just want to make sure if you do move your camera with it, you want to make sure you know what part of the background is where at any given moment, so that when you key it, you can follow it along with the footage. But yeah, for this project, I would just say, guys, use like a tripod shot or a static shot. Just put it on a counter or something if you have somewhere you can do this, because that's just going to be the easiest for the practice.
Are we doing green screen now?
Yeah, I was going to do just like a quick exercise, green screen, like a 10-second, 20-second clip.
Okay, I have a couple clips I can use for that actually.
Sweet.
I've been practicing green screen for the last like month and a half now.
Oh, cool.
Because I got a green screen setup studio in my room now.
Oh yeah, you showed me. Yeah, it looks cool. Yeah. All right, so the next thing, and this stuff is in your camera. You want to keep your ISO levels as low as possible, because when you raise your ISO, you start getting. Actually, you want to keep it as close to your native ISO as possible, which could be a little higher or lower, but depends on your camera. So make sure you know what your native ISO settings are, and if you don't, look up your manual for your camera or your phone. And then you want to keep it low, because otherwise when you have it higher and higher, it starts to introduce that noise, and that'll make the keying very hard because these blotches of different colors are coming in. So you always want to have a clean, crisp footage so that you can key it out a lot easier. Match your shutter speed with the background shutter speed. Usually, now if you're shooting something and you're going to pretend like you're driving through a street, so you just take your camera and you're walking along a street, filming it at 24 frames per second, you'll probably want to film your subject at 24 frames per second to get that same feeling. But if they're in a car, they're not actually moving that much. So it depends a lot on movement, because the more movement your subject does in front of a green screen, the more blur there's going to be. And the more blur there is, the harder it is for that thing to key it out. So you might want to raise your shutter speed up higher if they're doing like a hand wave or something with a lot of movement, so that you can get a nice crisp keying, which would be taking out the green screen, and then add in motion blur in post. It won't look exactly the same, but it'll still give you the opportunity to key it out really well, because if you have too much blur, it's not going to know what's green and what's not, and it might cut out part of the hand when they're waving, or keep it partly green, which is ugly. Yeah, Daniel.
I don't know if you recommended anything for anyone that it wants to do this thing for green screen, like any what to use.
Not yet. No. Do you have any apps or anything that anybody?
Not just apps, but iMovie is it's a free app for Macs. But also, I was gonna say you could use the green poster paper from the dollar stores.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. So if you guys don't have anything like that, you could get something just like a green poster board.
Yeah,
and
that's
go to
all
work
you
for
need.
the
Just get like 5 of those and just put them on your wall, and you got yourself a green screen for your own room or whatever. If you want to just go cheap.
If you guys are going to use like paper or something like that, they do reflect more light
Yeah.
than other forms.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. So just like you'd want to light it a little less, or have your subject far enough away that it's not having any spill.
And never wear green on the green screen.
Yep. Yeah, we went over that. Definitely.
Or blue.
Right. But yeah, so if there's a lot of movement your subject's doing, you might want to consider upping the shutter speed of the footage, making sure you get that nice and clear outline for their hand or whatever their movement is doing, and then adding in motion blur so it looks back to how a 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second footage would. But you do want to match it to the background and not have it be like separate and weird, because it'll look weird. Let's see. I think Priscilla pointed this out, but if your final key is a dark shot, you might want to consider using a blue screen, since it's going to be darker and not have as much light. That way it just blends in a little more naturally. It's a little easier to put together, instead of having a green screen, which is very bright, and having some of that light spill onto your subject, but even though they're supposed to be in the dark. So then you can just do a blue screen instead and have it be a little darker, and it'll probably work out the same. Also be aware of eye color. Like if somebody has really bright green eyes or really bright blue eyes, that could, depending on the kind of keying you're doing or how close up the shot is, it could actually affect the shot. It could try to key out their eyes, which is something you don't want. So be aware of that too. If you're gonna have a really like extreme close up, not extreme close up, but like a close up where it shows part of the background, but also really close up to their face, be aware that it might try to key out whatever color their eyes are, depending on if it's the same as the background or not. They also said actors can look pale and sickly against a green screen, so you might want to have a makeup person ready just to give them a little more color, have them stand out a little more. And of course, light the subject for the background, the color temperature as well. If you're gonna be out in the sun and your background footage is very orange and warm looking, you might want to set your white balance a little more orange to have an easier match in the post-production, so that you don't have to do it all in editing. If you're shooting in RAW, you have some more freedom with that, but if you're not shooting in RAW, you want to make sure to kind of get it as close to the final footage as you can. And then when using a cloth green screen, you want the part that goes from the wall to the floor to be kind of like a skateboard ramp. You don't want to have a hard crease. I think in this picture you can kind of see it. So there's no like hard creases where it touches the floor and then they're going to go, it touches the wall to the floor, and it's not in that corner. It kind of just spreads out, kind of like a skateboard ramp if you were going to go down it. So you want to have that so that it's all smooth, it's easier to key out. You don't want any rough edges that's going to change the color in the corners, and it's not going to key out properly and it's going to look weird. Just be aware of that too if you guys have a cloth one or something like that. They also have like these portable ones, portable green screens that pop out, can fold up. I have one that's kind of like it can go blue or green. I think this guy has the one I have or something similar where you can switch it. Those aren't that bad either if you guys are planning on doing anything, YouTube work or anything like that. A lot of YouTubers will use these things and kind of just put it behind them and it pops up and you can switch it to blue or green. It does have a little bit more reflection than a cloth, but it is easy to carry around and bring with you if you need to constantly be on the move. They also have something like this, which pops out of that thing at the bottom and it pulls up to the top. So if you just need like a little skinny green screen or like, you know, like fake news report, it might just be easier to get something like this, put it behind your subject and raise it up than having a whole green screen setup, which might take a little longer. Something like this would be a little more expensive and a little harder to get. So just be aware of what your actual needs are for the shoot. And then they say don't have wrinkles in your green screen. If you are using cloth, try to avoid wrinkles. You might want to, where is it at? So a lot of wrinkles will also add more trouble to your post-production process because when there's a wrinkle, the color is going to be a little different. That wrinkle is making that part of the sheet or that part of the fabric look darker. So it's not this evenly same color as the rest of the green screen. So you want to try to either iron it out or use something like a steamer to get rid of those wrinkles. And there's also little clamps you can put at each end if you have like two.
They normally come with a green screen kit, but if they don't, you can always order them off like Amazon or eBay. And
So something like that, you can kind of see it. If you look closely, you can see
in the
this.
corner, you can see like these
Let me
little
see if I have a bigger.
clippy things.
Mine didn't come with the unwrinkled kit or
video.
whatever.
Well, if you look at this picture, you can kind of see these little clamps. If you ever
Sandbags help too.
was that sandbags for the bottom? Yeah, actually he has right there too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
you
what I mean.
can kind of get these clamps on the top and the sides, and then you pull them back enough so that the whole thing stretches, and it kind of gives it evenly balanced look and not having any wrinkles.
What they do say is never wash them in a machine.
If you can help it, because it could wash out. It could affect the color of the actual green.
Yeah, it could uneven the color. That's why they say
And it adds a lot
steam
of
or
wrinkles
iron.
if you're gonna dry it and all that stuff. So yeah.
That too.
P47 is a good thing too.
Yeah, there's some types that wrinkle less than others. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm giving you-
there are
questions or
some
anything?
that of course are gonna have like a couple wrinkles here and there. But
I'm
it doesn't
showing
make
you
that
guys
big
an example
difference.
too.
I know a lot of YouTubers that just have that one that you lift up that I think looks awesome. It's just that, honey.
But does anybody have any questions about any of that?
I'm showing you guys an example, by the way, Dakota.
Okay. Oh, and here's the thing, like we actually sent the video on this. Brian sent it to us. They're showing a projection in the background and it's kind of blurred out. And they're filming this guy in the car and they're having people move lights around so that it looks like lights are passing by. I recommend looking at that video. I think Priscilla sent it in the chat.
Mhm.
Really cool. It shows how you can kind of get the same thing as you would on green screen, just using a cheap projection because you don't really need it to look fabulous because it's most likely going to be blurred out background. If you're using it for like a car scene or something like that. And if you're going to use it for something where you want to show the background, that wouldn't work and you would need green screen. But if you're showing the subject and you're blurring out the background, then something like a projection wouldn't be bad. And it would actually probably work really well if you do it right. But yeah. So anybody have any questions about any of that or the project itself that we're gonna have you guys do or anything?
Well, so you said steaming it clean is better than washing it?
Yeah, someone recommended that you could use either a steamer or just ironing it out. To get
Multiple people actually.
Wait,
They
but if it needs to be cleaned though.
Unless it's like,
Oh,
yeah, they say unless you
yeah, I don't know
absolutely
if
have
that's
to, don't wash
Unless
it.
you
in
get
the
the projector.
Yeah, unless it's like super dirty, then yeah, there's no way around it. But they
You just
do
get the
recommend
projector.
steaming and ironing
Mandalorian
it
projector.
more
That's all you gotta do.
because it can lose some of its color, you know, just like regular clothing loses some of its color in the wash sometimes. Or it can wrinkle even more, which can make it a lot harder and that kind of stuff.
But
Keep
yeah,
it clean
like,
No.
cost then.
I can actually show you guys an example I've done.
there's also these things like green screen suits that people will wear where you key them out so that you can have an invisible person there, or you can have them moving something around, like if it's a
Morph
footy
suit.
baseball,
Ooh,
stuff
that
like
is
that. You can put
what
suits
the
on,
heck
or
is
you can
that?
just put clothes or
It's called-
spandex.
It's called a morph suit.
Is that what it
No,
is?
I'm talking about that
Or
weird
suit.
little weird looking dude.
It looks
I
like
can
it's
show you
out-
an example, Lakota, if you want. I can of some green screen work I've done. You can show for the group.
Okay.
Okay, let me get it.
Have it on
Yeah.
Facebook or something.
I'll send you the link. I'll send you the Dropbox link.
Okay, so it'll be an email.
Yep. No, I'll send it through Facebook.
Oh, okay,
Just give me a minute or two.
gotcha. All right. So does anyone have any questions so far, or comments?
I'm gonna reiterate this just one more time. I know I'm annoying, but
Yeah, sure.
hopefully the videos that I sent on the WhatsApp can help you guys. I really, really recommend that 101 one. It talked about how you shouldn't use like when you're trying to make it look cool, you shouldn't use smoke because that can interfere with it. To not use it for every single thing. It just gave so many good tips, so many good recommendations. Even in the post editing, like even in the post production, it gave a few tips. So I really recommend that video. I think it was really good.
Wow, there's so many fireworks outside.
I would like to add that green screen,
Oh,
like
and watch Brian's.
there's like a lot of ups and downs to the green screen. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not shunning it. Just have a mindset that there is like a process to it and it's not the easy route. It's not to be used as the easy route.
Yeah.
So the one thing about green screen for cinematographers a lot of times is that it kind of takes away from the fun in doing cinematography for cinematographers, because now you have step two. Like if you go to a location and you shoot something, you know, you can get creative. Like, oh, I'm going to put this gel in the background. I'm going to do this, because you're dealing with background and foreground and your own set and throwing lights everywhere. But with green screen, you're not doing that. So you're kind of like sacrificing a lot of your work for post. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of have to use your imagination a lot more, and you have to be more open to things that you cannot see and you cannot control, which is kind of like difficult for cinematographers. Well, it's not, I'm not gonna say difficult for cinematographers, but that it just adds a level of difficulty. And then you can't also for wardrobe, you can only like, it just, I mean, there's already a certain amount like of clothes you can't wear just on a normal set, but then with the green screen, it just makes it even worse. Like whites,
Yeah.
greens,
No,
blues.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it's just another layer of
I
difficulty.
feel like a lot of people.
Right.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of people tend to look at it like, oh, the easy way out would be using green screen. But that's exactly why I recommend the videos, because it shows just how complex green screen actually is, how much work it actually takes.
It doesn't show
And
it.
how much
Actually, the videos make it worse because people want to do it. The only way to get it a true understanding on the difficulties of green screen is to actually do it,
Yeah.
and then you understand.
Oh no, yeah.
Watching
But I mean,
videos-
like for most people that don't know very much about it and just have seen like green screen here and there, that video, for example, at the very end, it shows you all of the different levels of editing that went through so they could get that final result. And there were a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they
it's
showed
all
that,
different
for
layers,
example. Yeah, there were like 7 or 8 layers that he showed
And it was
basically.
just for a simple shot. Yeah. So it's like it's very not easy. It's not like, hey, let's just do it like this. We'll get whatever we want.
So I feel like for the person who's never, like for me, for example, I only knew the basics about it. I did not know it was this much it was this complex, this much work. And reading and watching all of this, I was like, holy crap, I can't imagine actually doing this, like all of the tiny little details that go into it. And
I can imagine you doing it.
so yeah,
I can see you doing it.
No, it's too much.
It's too much for
Wait a
who?
minute, get shot
It says
for
the.
it. So this is Daniel's video. He said he did some green screen on it.
Let's see.
It's just one of my friend's self tapes I have permission for. So
You know, Credit Karma shows you your card based on your profile, right? Well, and you can even see your approval odds before you even apply.
Like-
Wow.
Speaking French?
yeah, he's from Quebec.
Ah, cool. All right. But yeah, as you guys can see, like the background isn't where it actually is.
Karma for this,
He has
right?
the, like the outlining from the headlight.
Yeah.
He's lit
You
separately
also-
from the green screen.
you can see
It's
that
also
he
a
used
lot-
a little bit too much blur on the top as well, because you can see that like there's a, and that was like a big thing that they were talking about that's really hard to do. Not like criticizing at all. I'm just saying that like that is really hard. Like getting that exact outlining correctly is one of the things that they said was like the hardest to do. Was
And
like
also
getting
a lot of color correction too.
Right.
yeah.
A lot of people have like their hair. If someone has like hair that sticks out from their head a lot, it's very translucent in certain areas.
Mhm.
So you'll see
Yeah.
little bits of green, and then it'll try to. It messes up the computer when you're trying to edit it.
The
Definitely.
color correction is not color correct, but the color grading, should I say, is another, because when you start putting filters on there, it starts affecting the actual green, and that affects the key. So it's really hard to actually apply any type of color grading filters on there, or LUTs or anything like that on there.
It's very temperamental. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I just when watching this, I just noticed a little bit of mistake myself. So I cut
No,
out
no,
the
I don't,
green
I'm
screen
sorry.
out.
I didn't mean to like criticize you for like
No,
obviously.
no.
I just mean
for-
like to show how hard it actually is, like the little details.
Yeah. But yeah, just like it can be very hard, and even myself, I noticed I cut out the green screen a little too soon there
Mm-hmm.
at the very
you're
end.
raising your hand.
Was that?
Devinder, you're raising your hand.
Yes, I did. Lakota,
Yeah.
I have a question. Have you learned or know about the new or modern technology, especially in the newsroom? They can put the anchor person in another country between people. It seems he's right there, and he's wandering around in between, like being one of the crowd person.
Mhm.
Is that also being done with chroma key or green screen, or is it through some other software now?
It might be
That is
projection.
most likely it's live action green screen. Like even on a set, they can show you kind of what the final output's going to look like. Now they have like a monitor will have be able to kind of chroma key itself so that you can kind of see what the final output's going to look like. It won't be exactly the same, but they do have the technology to show you that. So if they're showing it on an actual news program, I'm assuming they are using it live, like they're just showing you that monitor and how it looks, so then you can kind of get it. I'm sure if you like paused and checked every single frame, you would see some mistakes happening, but just for like watching it live, I'm sure it's like pretty good to where you can't really tell.
I definitely want to do research on that and get back to you, because I feel like we were learning too, so we don't want to say anything like, oh, it must be this.
But
Because
I
we just wanna
assume
be
that
sure.
because like they also do the same thing when they're using CGI and someone's in one of those mocap suits. They have a
Yeah.
monitor that shows like a pre-visualization of what the CGI will look like live while the person's moving around. So the same thing can happen with green screen too.
I also know that they're doing a lot as far as like they used to have those projector concerts and stuff like that. projection concerts, like holograms or whatever. But now it's getting like really good to the point where they can put one person in another, like put a person in a shot or something like that. So I wonder if that will be used in the future or not, or if that is able to, because I saw some holograms that were so, like some projection holograms, so realistic looking, it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
wonder if that's ever going to be like a thing that they use as well, or if it already is.
Yeah, a lot of these tools are also just used for a glimpse at what it could look like. Like something like that, like a hologram could also be, I'm sure it's being used as like what it's going to look like in the final. Because when they're doing these really big visual production shots, they want to make sure they're getting everything right before they get to the editing room and realize it's messed up. So they do a lot of this pre-visualization stuff to kind of figure it out before they even get to that point, so they can make sure it's as close to what they want as they can get it on set.
Right.
But yeah, David, I would assume that they are using green screen and they are keying out the green screen for that person and then inserting them into the footage of whatever footage is being shown on the background.
Yeah, it's becoming very, very realistic, as if the person is there in person. You know, he might be inside the studio here, local, but when the final results come on television, it's really, really hard to tell whether this person is in front of a chroma key, or is he really, they flew him there and he's wandering around through the crowd, and he seems to be asking questions and so on. So they must have some new technology, because it's so believable. It's very, very believable now.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Like we said, this isn't like, we're not absolutely sure, but this is what we think it might be. And like you said, there's so much technology every single day. I will definitely do some research and see if we can find like a definitive answer, but that's really cool to think about, because I never thought about it, but especially
it is cool
in news.
how advanced everything's getting.
Yeah.
Especially with just like the CGI and video game like getting better and better. It's making it.
Devinder, do you think you
game
can send us an example, so, like at some point, like email us or a clip or something? Someone's asking for an example.
Yeah, I'll try to look for something, but I did, whether it was a documentary or some info session about green screen, they were showing how much can be accomplished or what the new ways are. And I was really shocked, because I was one of the anchors a few years ago.
Oh,
wow. But now, since I left that job, now the product that's coming on television is they can send you anywhere. They can send you anywhere behind, among a big crowd, or that's running around, or some votes are happening, or even in India during this new COVID or something, they can just transform you, just like special effects. So
that sounds really cool.
All
If you do find any examples, please.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
I'm definitely gonna play around and see if I can do that.
That'd be cool, yeah. If you find any footage too, yeah. Or if you make any.
Then nobody needs to leave their home. We could just film from remotely.
That's right.
Yeah. No more on location reporters.
No more on set. I could just plug in his projector and he's there on the scene.
Yeah, right.
No more craft services.
Right. All right. I'm going to move on to the next thing then. Working with extras. So extras are non-speaking actors who populate the background. They're also called background talent. each name means the same thing. When you're working with extras, you want to figure out how many extras you're actually going to need. So if you have 2 scenes that are going to need extras, scene number 1 is going to need like 5 background actors. Scene number 2 might need 10 background actors. You want to try to reuse the 5 background actors from the first scene and just have them kind of like change their clothes if they're not going to be too noticeable in the actual set, because they're background, so they shouldn't be the main focus. Hopefully, if you're doing your production right, your subject should be the main focus, so they shouldn't really be paying attention to whoever's in the background as much. But it's just to give that added production value to make it feel like it's alive and like it's a real scene.
And if you have anyone that has particular, sorry if I'm not raised my hand, but I just wanted to say this. If someone has like a particular earring or something that's very visual, try to avoid using that person a second time.
Or just
Something
have
that makes them stand out.
Yeah, something that will basically show it's the same person.
Right. But yeah, but that's just reusing the same background actors for the same, like a scene that you're going to do right after the next, will help keep costs down. And you'll have just like, you won't have to find as many people, so it'll be easier as well. And then you want to just figure that kind of stuff out before you even get to shoot, so you'll kind of add that stuff into your shooting schedule to figure out when it's going to work the best. Instead of using 15 different people, now you only need 10, because you're going to reuse 5, and you'll still get 15 background people. You just want to have 15 separate people. They say consider, if it's a low budget, consider using like friends, family, or even the crew, because some people will be willing to just go ahead and stand over there and walk across the background at this moment, and they'll be fine doing that. But just make sure they're okay doing that before.
And they don't have equipment on them, like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, was there someone in the background had equipment?
A guy with a cowboy hat sitting in the background in the back of the ship having a cigarette.
Wow.
Yeah, and I just watched Blacklist that had the same issue today.
In a big budget like that, you want to definitely have a person dedicated to looking out for the background, because the director himself should be focused on the main subject in the film, whatever the main principal cast is. Now you have if you have a huge lot of background actors like in this shot right here, you're going to want to have your first AD, your second AD, and a second AD to assist. The second would probably be the one to actually be looking just out for these extras, since there's so many of them, just to make sure that if they can spot any little thing, like if they're in space and they're supposed to be wearing a certain color, or they're supposed to be doing a certain thing, and someone's smoking like that through their helmet or whatever, because they're doing whatever they want, but they're supposed to be in space, so they can't breathe, so how are they smoking? Those are the kinds of things that you want somebody to be like focusing on. If it's a big budget, you want to have somebody with the extras at all times and have them knowing, like just paying attention just in case for things like that, because there's so many people you might not notice what one of them.
And there's also a position called the extra wrangler as well.
Okay, no, I didn't hear about that. So that would just be someone that looks over.
It was in one of the videos, honey.
Oh, okay. I mean, I didn't really pay attention to that one then, or I think it was.
That's fine. We pay attention to a lot at a time. Trust me. A lot.
Yeah, but yeah, they keep. It's either the AD or if it's a huge budget film, they'll have one wrangler, basically an extra wrangler or talent wrangler. They go by various different names.
Yeah.
And I've learned the hard way. It's like in different countries too, they call them by different things too.
Right. So that might be what the second AD would be. I'm not sure, but you can also dedicate, if you don't have a specific person just for extras, you can dedicate someone to it.
Yeah, that would be dedicated to the assistant director, the first one or the second one,
or the unit production manager.
Yep, that too.
UPM.
Right. But so when you're getting extras, you want to coordinate with wardrobe to get detailed descriptions of what the extras need to wear and what they need to bring as options, just in case they need to change. So you always want to, like, if you're emailing out to people trying to get them to be an extra, you want to ask them to bring an extra set of clothing or two, and also give them a general description of like what they need to wear. So if your principal cast is going to be wearing red and you want them to stand out against everyone else in the background, you don't want them to kind of blend in, then you want nobody else to be wearing red. So you got to tell them before they get to set, hey, don't wear red, don't wear logos, don't wear this other type of stuff, just wear like a straight black shirt or something like that, or a jacket.
Yeah, I think
then
they
can
said
bring
no
that, and then you
logos,
can,
distracting patterns, or super bright colors.
Zebra,
neon
no
or
zebra
anything like that.
effects because it affects the camera too.
yep, any kind of like
And-
very close patterns will do that weird effect.
And vibrant colors.
Yep.
Yeah, what I said.
No, I didn't hear
Yeah,
that.
so you,
I have crickets going in my ear, so.
but you also want to make sure to tell them to bring like extra clothing in case their option doesn't work. So maybe you're shooting a bar scene and it's supposed to be like a little more grungy and a little more run down, so it's a little more of a scary look for the extras. And someone brings like a suit or whatever, like they probably wouldn't do that, but
Or
just
even if they're
if
wearing
you
the
bring
same
like a
thing,
button-up
because it
shirt,
does
but it's supposed to
happen.
be a little more like, it's not that style, then at least hopefully they have something else they can wear.
Also, if two
change
people
that.
are wearing the same thing, or if they're wearing something that's too similar to the outfit the main character is wearing, that was also some examples I gave.
Yeah, so you always want to ask, like, give them like what they should wear, and that's why you need to know your scene beforehand, so you can tell them what they should wear, what kind of clothes to bring, and then just bring another option or two just in case that doesn't work. So it's too many people wearing blue, we're gonna have you change. What did you bring? You brought white. Okay, cool. We're gonna change you. That kind of thing.
You would not want them to change it to white.
Hey, that lady in the middle is wearing kind of white, and that guy has a white shirt. But yeah, I know it's like certain colors you don't want. So that's
I think
the
it
kind of thing
depends
you'd
very
want to
much
go
on your
over.
shot. It depends very much on where
That's the kind
your
of thing you'd
location.
want to
all that
discuss
stuff.
with your department heads and everything like that. So you also want to run it by everybody else if there's like any visual effects or if there's any certain background or whatever. You want to make sure that it's not going to interfere with the rest. You want to get the paperwork figured out prior to the extras being on set. That doesn't mean you need to have everything signed beforehand, but you do want to have the paperwork ready when they arrive. You want to have the packet, the extra talent release form, so they get to set, they can sign in, they can sign their release form, or you can maybe even send it out beforehand in the email, so maybe they'll read over it and sign it before they even get there. That's a win-win.
What they do recommend is having a person that is either in like a little table or in the entrance waiting for the extras to arrive and receiving those release forms and writing down the names of all the extras that have arrived, the ones that haven't, the ones that have signed. That way you make sure that all of the extras that you're working with have signed the form, and you can also keep track of the extras that have arrived.
Yeah, because you want to be, if you're paying people, you want to be paying attention to who actually showed up. If you need 50 people to come and 45 of them came, well, which 45 came? And then you need to know. So that's why you'd have like a sign-in sheet or something like that.
And know that which one signed the release forms, because you cannot work with them if they haven't.
And also in case of like different ethnicity scenes too.
Yeah.
Like if there's like a scene for basically African American people and you have all like Caucasian people, that's not going to work.
Well, that would be something you'd send out in your call for
But I'm saying
I'm
I'm playing with what Priscilla said, because it's like if those people called in sick or they didn't show up, they flaked out.
Oh, you mean if you need a specific amount of a certain type?
Like for the
person.
scene, like
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, so you always want to be aware of who showed up, and
that's why, sorry, honey, just one last thing. And that's exactly why they recommend you, if you can, and Coda's going to go over this, but since Dana brought it up, you should also think about possibly hiring a few extra people than you might need.
Yep.
Like it might cost you a little more cash, but it's a safer bet. Because, honey, what was the percentage of people that don't show up?
Let me check.
20%?
So they said like be prepared for extras, about 30% to arrive early, about 80% to be on time, 5 to 15% to arrive late, and also 50 to 70% before
Yep.
they even show up, 50 to 70% of the total to not even show.
I was
So
just
if
to
you're going
say
to try to
that.
get 100 actors, you might want to try to get 150 just so if they don't show up, that you can still have the amount you actually need. And then you can let them in, and then 30% of those people that do show up will be early. It's generally like that around there. So you want to be aware of that. People will show up early. So they said some people show up like an hour or two early. So you just want to have somewhere to put them and keep them occupied so they're not, distracted or bored or leave early or whatever, because there are problems that happen with that.
Although one of the main tips that they did give is expect to wait around, expect to have to sit around and wait, or sometimes you might not even shoot that day. But if you have a bad attitude, or if you're like, oh, can I leave early, blah, 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 they're probably not going to ask you back, because that's not professional. That's not like, you got to know what you're coming in for.
I don't know, V. Does anyone know the answer to this? Is it common to let background actors know up front that they are, like, quote unquote on call?
Like they should usually have a time set for their show, like for them to be on camera. They should have on the call sheet, it's like, you'll be on camera at this time. Like I've been on a set for 8.
But her question is like, if you have your 100 extras, is there any time when they would have 20 people that are on call, so that if 20 of those 100 don't show up, then they call you in?
Yeah, no, I mean, not necessarily on call, but there's an understanding that because I know some people that did background for House of Cards. I know some people that done background for Captain America. I know someone who did background for the Wonder Woman movie that came out, and they always explain to you, like, you may end up on camera, and then everything we shoot might not even end up in the movie altogether. So there's always an understanding that them being there could just be a total waste of the day altogether. As for like having them on standby,
They're still gonna get
there's
paid.
always that understanding. There's that understanding. They always put that out there too, just to let you know, like, we need this many people. We have this many people on the roster scheduled to be here, but we only need this amount of people. So you might not make it into the movie. So there's always that understanding.
Okay.
But
And
it's
they're
not
kinda just turning
necessarily,
away.
it's not necessarily, hey,
exactly
you're
that.
on standby. So if these people don't show up, we're going to call you in. No, it's just show up. And then if we need you, it's just like a first come, first serve type thing.
Gotcha.
And
I was gonna
sometimes
say, in one of the articles, it actually said that sometimes you will have more people than you need, and they will be waiting around, or sometimes they will be waiting around because you won't be able to shoot that day. And that is most of the time they should have that understanding. And either way, they're going to get paid, because if they stay the whole day and if they're waiting, they're going to get paid. But that's why they say, don't have a bad attitude. Don't be like, I'm going to leave, or be complaining, because that can make them not want to have you again when they do need you,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like, I was on one shoot, and I basically after 10 hours we were sitting there, they had way too many extras.
Mm-hmm.
They had 100 extras for one show, and most of us were sitting around doing nothing for like 10 hours.
Well, yeah, but you got paid, didn't you? You got paid for that day, so you gotta wait until the day is over.
But the thing is they were setting up for their scene. They didn't have anything prepared, anything organized. But I've been put on some shows. There's like, please keep your day free in case we call you in.
No, so
and
they do that on call thing.
Yeah, they called me in at like 9:00 at night. It's like, could you come show up for 10 o'clock? I'm like, yeah, I'm on my way. I was there till the next morning.
I guess it just depends on the shot and what they need. I'm guessing if they need like a huge crowd, they're gonna do that, because in case those people don't show up, you need to make it look like it's a huge crowd still. So they'll probably do a lot more of that kind of thing.
To be honest, I like being a
pool party or something where they need like.
At the end of the day, we understand that it can. We see both sides. Obviously, we understand it can be exhausting and frustrating and tiresome. But at the end of the day, if you're getting paid, that's the thing. If they're just saying, "Oh, we might call you and you might get paid," that's different. But if it's like, and that's your choice if you want to wait or not, that's up to you. But if you were paid for a job and you're there and they don't need you and you're just waiting around, you were still paid for that job. So you kind of still have to wait until the end of the day until the end of that day. Because it might, I don't know for sure, I can't really say if they're obligated to pay you if you leave halfway, but I have heard of some cases of people refusing because it's like, well, they came in, they stayed for an hour and then they left. And
Yeah, that
because they
makes-
said they weren't needed, and that's just unfair. And at the end of the day,
But
it's
technically,
better.
they still have to get paid up to 3 hours for that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. It might be different. It might depend on the studio, like you said, on the production, on your choice, of course. Like, you're not obligated. If you were there for a certain amount of time, and that was the time you agreed to work for, and that was the time you agreed to get paid for, and it passed that time, and you're still waiting around, perhaps. I'm just saying that as a standpoint, if it's like an 8 to 12-hour day and you are paid for it and you're waiting there and they don't need you for that day, or they don't need you because they have extra, it can come off kind of rude because they might need you for something else, and then you might still get paid for another day. You never know those opportunities. So it very well depends. Like, we're not like shaming anyone, like, don't do, I'm sorry if it came off that way. I just mean that sometimes it's tricky because there are some people that are a little more frustrating than others.
But don't,
yeah.
sorry, interrupting you.
No, it's fine.
But don't be one of those people that complain about not doing anything all day. Because sometimes the AD will come into the room. It's like, I need 5 people here. I need 5 people. And they'll basically, the first people that come up to them, like, I've been on a couple shows, not going to name them. And it's like, people just sat around and did nothing. And they complained that they weren't volunteering for the hour, volunteering for the scenes. They just wanted to go there and sit there and say, oh, look, I was on the set.
And at the end of the day, even if you end up not doing anything, if they don't need you that day,
But
if it's a good production, that's still awesome. You're still getting paid to do nothing at a, I don't know.
So anyway, all right, so I'm gonna jump in right here. So all jobs on a film set are going to have waiting around times. And you just need to make it clear, because extras can sometimes be people who've never been on a film set.
Yeah.
And you want to just make it clear before they even get there that they might be waiting around. Like Brian said, you want to make sure they know, we might not even actually use any of this footage. In fact, we might not even be able to shoot this scene today, but thanks for coming out. And, you want to like be nice and be courteous and let them know stuff beforehand, because if people know that they might be waiting around all day without shooting the scene, and then they end up not shooting the scene, they'll be less likely to be annoyed by it than if you don't tell them.
Respect the people there.
Definitely.
Don't be like don't be like a slimy car salesman that's trying to sell this crappy used car, and you're saying, oh yeah, we're definitely going to get you in. You're going to be a feature role just to try to get as many extras as you can. That's not going to ever turn out well. So just be
and then you're just going to get grumpy people on set. Yeah.
About
so definitely have communication. Communication is key in everything. Ask questions. If you're on set as an extra and you've been waiting around for a while, you can ask him, hey, so are we going to shoot today? Like, ask the person that's supposed to be working with you.
I don't think you should do that. I say don't do that, because
if it's a big amount,
I say don't do that because that person's not going to know. They're not going to know.
No. I mean, if it's the person that called you,
no,
isn't that okay?
Don't do that. They're not going to know.
No.
They're not going to. They're going to get annoyed by you constantly asking.
You could get your.
I have to agree with Lakota on that one.
Yeah,
because,
I gotta agree too.
It's one thing. It's, as a director, like I keep saying this. I say this directing is exhausting, and you have all these people coming at you asking these questions, like simple questions, like, oh, what shoestring should I wear? And I'm like, you're an adult, figure it out. You know what I mean? All these people, and then you have these background actors who are going to come to you and act like small things here and there while you're concerned about bigger things.
Oh,
like
yeah, but
this,
I'm not talking about the director. I'm talking about,
I understand what you're saying, but sometimes, like, as a background, you have to understand, as a background actor, like, you aren't the biggest priority. Just be there, and if you're needed, you're needed. If you're not, you're not. Like on my last shoot, I explained to the background. I had 3 or 4 different background, and we shot some of their stuff first. And I told them, I said, I can't let you go home now because we're still shooting. And then when we come back to this angle, I might need you in the background again.
But exactly, you had some
And-
communication. That's all I'm saying is like, how, if it's been 12 hours and the shoot's still going on and their workday is gone, and they're like, okay, do I go home? Do I not? And shouldn't they like look
They'll
if
tell
they
you.
have
They'll tell you.
someone?
There
Yeah,
should
we'll
be
let
somebody
you
that tells
know.
you like, hey guys, we're not gonna be able to get you today.
So
Oh,
if a background actor comes to the set and I'm finished with them, and like let's just say like you have a background actor that's there, and I only use them for like 3 shots, and they've only been there for like 2 hours. If they've like done everything that I need from them, and I let them go early, I'm gonna give them their full amount. Like that's a whole day right there. You're gonna get paid.
Gotcha.
But if
Okay.
you come to me and you're like, hey man, like I gotta get home and da da da, and you've only been here for 3, I'm gonna give you a half day's rate because we've discussed a full day and you're not even committed to that
Right.
when you got on set. So you're getting a half day rate if you want to go home early for me. But if you like, if I only need you for 3 hours and you like your dad, look, whenever I've had actors come to me like, hey man, I'm here all day. Whenever you need me, just let me know. And I've always come back to them. Like I'm always calling them first because I know like these guys are committed. I'll go back to them every single time.
Yeah.
But if I have to deal with, oh, I gotta pick, I gotta get home, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. I shouldn't have to deal with that because we've already discussed in pre-production through emails and phone conversations, like what the real deal is. And if you've been on any film set, you should have an understanding that
Yeah,
it's
I'm
not
just
always
looking
gonna
at it
be-
from the perspective of like the director's busy, everyone's working. And
So-
sometimes it's an indie. I'm just looking at it from that perspective as
But-
well and wondering
But
what
the
would be
thing
the
with
best
that,
thing to
but the
do.
thing with that is,
I'm not saying to do that. I'm just wondering what would be the best thing to do, and he explained it.
But for costumes
Wait.
wise,
Well,
the
I
best thing to do is
understand.
be waiting because like
Like,
here's the
those-
thing, if you have, let's say you had the first, second, or second AD, or even you had an extras wrangler over you, and that's the guy that they say, hey, when you come in, you're the extra, and they say, hey, when you come in, talk with this person, they'll show you where to go, they'll set you all up.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about.
And then
Yeah,
you
but-
don't keep going to that person and saying, hey, are we shooting? They're not gonna know.
Oh no, I didn't mean like
That's
a
what I'm
bunch,
saying.
but yeah, I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean.
No, but
I
not
was
even
just
one.
asking from the perspective of like, if the person was in the situation, what should they do, type of thing.
They
I didn't mean
should
to
shut
say it
up
like
and
that.
sit down and wait.
Yeah, that's what they agreed to. Like kind of like that's what you agreed to when you're an extra. Like
Yeah.
No, I know. I'm
like
just
I've
trying
been
to
on an
think of
extra.
like, okay,
Li-
if you do have questions, and you like, and you,
I
it's
get
been a
where
while.
Priscilla's trying to go. I kind of understand where
I'm just
Priscilla's
trying to
trying to
look at
go.
it from both
She's
sides.
trying to
I
look at it
understand
from a
that-
different perspective, but
Yeah,
you
I'm
can
just
get,
sure we
but
cover both.
Priscilla, you're doing too much thinking. You're thinking too deep into it.
I know,
because-
but I'm always told that I play
Yeah.
devil's advocate, and I'm always like on the side of the
But
business.
to
or whatever, so
nip
I
this
just
in the
also
butt,
want to make sure.
But
listen,
there's like
to nip this into the butt so we can move on. If you're
Yeah,
there
okay.
in an
thing
email
is-
and I'm going on set as an extra, I'm going to be there all day until they tell me to leave. And
Okay.
I'm not gonna ask any questions. I'm gonna make myself visible. And if they don't see me or speak to me, I see people wrapping up, I'm gonna go, hey, listen, I was here, make sure you sign in. And that's it, man. You get paid for the day. Even if you did 13, 18 hours, the fact that some people would notice you. They'll watch.
I got you. I was
You
just asking from the perspective of someone in that situation. That's all.
Yeah.
you don't go to the AD. You don't go to that for like costume details. If you're gonna go to costume details, you go to wardrobe. But the thing is, the AD will show you all your stations that you need to go to. But like I said, raise your hand, volunteer whenever they call upon people. Don't just sit down and twiddle your thumbs because you're never gonna get called back.
Yeah,
And-
honey, you can continue. It's just because I know that sometimes I tend to be a little harsh on these things, and I look at it only from the company's perspective. So I wanted to make sure that we covered all angles and that kind of thing. Go ahead, honey.
Okay, yeah, but there's questions, there's different questions you like. They show usually a proper set. Like if you guys are running a set and you have extras, you should have somebody that the extras can go to ask questions, so that they're not going to whoever on set asking everything, because the person they might not even know. So you got to show them, hey, you can talk to this person, and then the extra shouldn't be asking questions like when can I go or are we even going to shoot, but more like, hey, where was the bathroom again, or is it okay if I, go to the bathroom right now, or is it okay if I go get a snack or whatever? Like that's the kind of questions that are okay.
So V asked, and this is also part of what I was asking, 12 hours, 18 hours, is there a maximum to keep extras on set as compared to main cast? No issue, just was
Depends on
wondering.
if they're a union or not, I believe.
Yeah, and then everything is gonna be in the email and the forms. Like they're gonna tell you how long they're gonna need you. So once you see that time has passed, like anything can happen. And I guess it depends on the big budget, low budget. It all depends, man, on the situation.
I think there are, like, I don't know if our extras part of the, I think extras in a union set, there has to be a certain amount of extras that are actual union. And then there has to be, the rest can be non-union. So they do still have to follow some kind of guidelines. Not sure what those guidelines are exactly.
I will say something on that. There's different. I know there's different rules. I don't know exactly what they are, but they're different from Canada to US.
Okay.
Because I've been on both US and Canada shows, and they both have different rules.
Gotcha. All right, so I'm gonna keep going. Someone recommended when she sends out stuff to the extras, she doesn't send them the call sheets because that's too much information. They don't really need all of that. Mainly, what they just need is just like contact them with the time, the location,
Oh,
and
you see on the sets I've been on, they have extras have their own call sheet.
oh, so they have a separate form.
Yeah, and they don't say all the information. They just say what scenes they're going to be in, what scenes there's going to be, and stuff like that. Wardrobe.
That was in one of the videos too, talking about like different call sheets for different departments, how you put like the need to know basis on some of them.
The need to know, because if you're shooting a big movie with a big celebrity, I mean,
you don't want everyone to know because everyone will go crazy.
Yeah, right. This is how stuff gets leaked out. So you don't want to send them the script or anything. Just let them know this isn't, give them an idea what type of movie they're going to be in, but you don't want to put all that stuff out there.
Yeah. So mainly you just want to make sure they know the location they got to go to, who to sign in with, or where to sign, or what signs to follow. If you have like, signs laid out on the set saying extras go this way or whatever, you want to let them know in the email, like what they're going to do when they actually arrive to set, where they would park, and then the time they need to be there, and what kind of wardrobe to wear on extra.
Contact information of the person they need to talk
and
to.
And emergency contact information as well.
Yeah, that's
you might hear banging in the background. I warn you now.
What?
You might hear some banging in the background. I warn you now.
Oh,
I'm gonna put the fireworks.
Oh, okay. Oh, Canada Day. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, just mute the phone.
All right. So make sure you explain things to background actors, like where the bathroom is when they arrive on set. Make sure you like have somebody give them a little tour of the set, of the parts that they should go to, where like the bathroom is, the craft services, holding and changing, and all that stuff is. To remind them to silence their phones, not to take pictures, stuff like that. Remind them when they're on the actual scene, they're most likely always going to be pantomiming. They're going to be silent. They're not actually going to be saying stuff, and they shouldn't even be whispering. They should just, don't say it. Just make it look like you're talking, because all the focus goes on the principal cast, and they want to make sure they get the principal cast heard and their lines are clear. So the background people are actually not making noise. So it's actually it's interesting to see a background scene, if you guys have it, of a bunch of actors just being really quiet, looking like they're fighting or looking like they're doing something in the background that would have a lot of noise, when really it's all silent, and it's kind of interesting to see. But you want to explain that to them so they know, so that they, if they're brand new to being on set, they're not going to be talking or thinking they'll be clanking their glass around or you know, whatever they're doing, they're not going to be making too much noise or any noise at all if possible. You also want to have the person that's over them kind of explain their motivations to them that they should have. If they're an angry crowd, you want to explain that they're an angry crowd. You know, they're running after this person. They're really wanting to get him. You know, he just did something. He burned down their village or whatever. So now they're running after him. And you want to do something like that. Give them something so they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And then, you know, you show them who to ask if they have any questions. So if you are like the director or you're somebody, or you're the first AD and you have somebody else who's actually going to be over them, you could introduce yourself and then explain those things and then be like, and if you have any questions, ask this person. They're the second AD or the second AD or the extra wrangler or whatever, and they'll be over you guys. So if you have any questions, ask them. And then you go away and do whatever. You want to give the background enough time to rehearse, especially in difficult scenes. If they are fighting and stuff like that, you want to be able to allow them to practice it a little bit before you just go ahead and do it. You want to give them maybe like 15 minutes to kind of warm up to it and get used to pantomiming and doing this silent movement and looking like they're fighting without making any noise, without just throwing them in there and being like, do it, because it'll be a little more awkward and it'll be kind of noticeable in the scene most of the time.
So the reason, I don't think you explained this yet, but the reason that they're not making any noise is so that later they can mix it up. Well, you can explain it better than I can, but you didn't explain that part, why they are not making noise.
He didn't get to it. I think he was going to get to it.
Oh, okay. Because he mentioned that they're quiet, and for people that don't know, they're probably like, well, why are they quiet?
It's for editing purposes, sound purposes, so they can get a clear sound mixing wise, so they can hear the main character's speech or scream or whatever. So they can always.
You look at a scene like in a club and there's a lot of loud music and there's a bunch of people dancing and talking in the background. Most that noise isn't actually there because you got to capture the actor, the main cast. You got to capture their voices, their lines, so that when you are mixing, when you have your sound mixer mixing the audio, they can lower or higher the levels of the different audio to make it so the audience can understand what the actors are saying, the principal cast. So usually what they'll do in a big crowd situation is you'll have everyone be quiet. You'll be having them miming what they're doing and making it look like they're doing, hey, Bobby. You'll have them making it look like they're doing it, but they're really, you know, they're silent. And then you might have a separate audio track where it's called, what is the track called? Walla? I think it's Walla, where you get like a group that you get them to actually talk or you get them to actually scream or whatever they're doing in the scene. So you can have that in audio in case you want to use it as like a stand-in before you put like whatever you do in post-production, or if you want to use that in post-production, if you got a nice crisp audio clip from it, you'll be able to use it. But that's just so you can put it over the actors in editing. So you wouldn't actually have them making any noise until that final moment, which is why they recommend to have that extras all be silent, doing the pantomiming the whole time until that final take with just the extras. And then you can let them make noise like they really would if they were in that moment. So then they're not used to making noise, because you want them to be more used to being quiet instead. Oops. They say, okay, so one problem that comes in with extras when you have them, because they're not talking, they're not making noise. They say if you are an extra or if you are over extras, watch out for talking with your hands, which is too much hand movement because you're silent, so you feel like you should do something. So moving your hands way too much, which looks unrealistic to what people actually do. They say don't exaggerate the movements. People tend to overdo stuff when they can't make any noise. So they'll not, or they nod their head too much. So be aware of that. Try not to nod your head all the time. Like maybe a gentle nod, sure. But if you're just constantly like, yeah, people don't do that in real life. So if you're actually talking to someone, you shouldn't be nodding your head constantly or moving your hands all this way and that. They say don't look up at the camera. You know, unless they specifically tell you to do that, do not look at the camera. And unless they specifically tell you to do it, don't look at the actors either. If you're directed to, if the actors are making a scene and you're the background in a grocery store and they're throwing a fit, they'll probably tell you, hey, when they start throwing a fit, look over at them like, what the heck's this person doing? But other than that, you don't want to look at the principal cast and you don't want to look at the cameras. Those are places not to look. And so then you'd have that person, whoever's over the extras, they need to be watching out for all of that. The continuity, the script supervisor will also have to pay attention, but usually there's so many people, so much going on in those kinds of scenes that you need multiple eyes on it to make sure like this extra isn't looking at the camera or stuff like that. Even in big productions, they get this messed up. There's sometimes, you'll see people doing a weird movement. They look like they're bored when they should be excited because they are actually bored in real life. So they're just like twiddling their thumbs like Daniel was saying. So you always want to be aware and try to have as many eyes on the extras as you can, especially if you have a huge crowd like in this picture. You want to have multiple people looking at it to see like, is everybody doing what they're supposed to? So then just in case one person is messing up, you can spot it before you get to editing. Like I said, keep the extras in the loop. If they have to wait 3 hours in between scenes, let them know. They'll put up with it better if they're in the know. That's kind of like what Priscilla was saying. Are we even shooting? They wouldn't even have to ask that question if someone would just come to them and be like, hey, we're setting up right now. It might take a few hours. Just, whatever, be aware of that. And thanks for being here. And we'll see you guys soon, blah, 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 blah. And then you go off. And that way they know, okay, we're waiting around for a few hours, because then it won't feel as long either. If they know they're waiting 3 hours, they know. And if they don't know, it's gonna feel more like 5 to 6 hours, because they're gonna be like, what is happening? So you always want to make sure like to keep them in the know so they don't leave early and they don't get upset or bored and then are bored on set. That's not good. So you always want to try to keep that in mind as well. So you also want to be sure to communicate with everybody before they even get to set. A rule of thumb is to send out information at least 3 times. So one could be like a week or 2 in advance, or a phone call, like Brian was saying. You could talk to them through that way a week or 2 in advance. Then about 2 days before the shoot, you send it out again. Hey, remember, this is happening on this day. And then another time, 18 to 24 hours before, you go, hey, just another reminder, tomorrow's happening. That way they aren't distracted or forget or can claim that they didn't know. You have sent them the information multiple times so that they understand and remember and keep getting remembered that, okay, yeah, this is happening on this day. So then they are more likely to show up. Let's see. Oh, you also want to include what not to wear. So like we said, clothes with logos, neon colors, and specific patterns, like the things with the lines that are too close, those mess up cameras and you don't want them. So if you can have like maybe a city scene and you're like, just wear general clothes like you would wear if you were out in this New York City or something, you still want to tell them, but don't wear this, don't wear that. If you don't want them to wear white, tell them don't wear white, don't wear logos. Logos are a big thing. So, no logos, no specific things that are designs that can be seen and show what this product is, anything like that. So you want to be sure to tell them all of that. And you probably want to tell them what season it is. If it's supposed to be winter, they should bring jackets and stuff instead of just wearing summer clothes, even if it is actually summer when you're shooting. And you want to be aware of that too.
But always
that's
change
another thing.
out of when you're done with that winter scene, obviously, is also a tip that they gave.
What?
Like when you're done filming that winter scene, also have a change of clothes to change out of when you're done filming. That was also a recommendation that they had, because you're not going to be wearing a big winter coat in spring or summer. So bring a change of clothes for that as well.
And they said to be aware of allowing the extras, if you are on the opposite side, if you're not the extra, you want to be aware that they are going to get hot or they are going to get cold, depending on if there's extreme temperatures outside. And you, whatever you're shooting, whether it is a summer scene, if it's really hot outside, try not to leave them outside. It's really hot and it's dangerous. You know, they could have a heat stroke, they could have something like that. Anything could happen. So you want to try to give them a dedicated area in the shade or inside, wherever they can be, to not be in those extreme conditions, because that is actually not, that's not good. And it's very dangerous as well. And you don't want people passing out on your set or any kind of trouble like that. But you also don't want them getting so hot that they're just like, screw this, I'm out. Especially if they have to wear, you know, a costume or something that's going to be really hot. And also the same thing, if it's cold, you don't want to leave them out in the cold and they're freezing, and you want them to wear summer clothes because this shoot takes place in summer. You want to be aware of these things, and just, they're people, they need to be taken care of. No matter how many there is, they need to be all taken care of. And also be aware, if you do have a shot like that, if you have, like, let's say it's a winter shot where they have to wear a jacket, in between shots, they're always going to be taking off those jackets because it's going to be hot if you're actually shooting it in spring or summer. So be aware of making sure everybody puts that stuff back on, especially if they're up in the forefront of the background, because those people will be the ones easiest to spot if they are different when watching the film. So even though the main focus is on the principal cast, if someone's immediately behind them in a jacket, then all of a sudden they don't have a jacket in the next shot, in the next take, it's going to look weird. So you want to be aware of that too. And that's it. I think that was all the things. We already covered everything else that I have in my notes. Does anybody else have any comments or questions about that stuff?
I have a comment about the green screen. If we can go back to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So like, another part, something I don't think we covered. So you talked about lighting for green screen. You talked about the process of green screen, but I think what was avoided was the actual background. I mean, you talked about, you know, lighting for the background, but normally, like specifically for this exercise that you guys are going to be doing, you're going to be green screening, and then I'm going to assume that you guys are going to be using Getty images or whatever stock footage you're going to be using. So there's a whole nother angle. There's like a not necessarily a copyright, but maybe a trademark or something infringement, because you're going to be using photos from wherever you're going to get it from. So you have to think about that as well when you're green screen. So like just, you know, Googling background imagery, you have to understand that you're going to be using somebody else's. So there's like a whole legal issue that could come into play when you're doing green screen as well, unless you're using your own images or going out and getting your own images. But then at that point, like, you might as well just shoot on location. And then another benefit, that's one of the downsides, but another benefit of shooting green screen is that green screen is always available. So like shooting on location, like shooting on a set, like let's say you shoot in an Airbnb, you can shoot, get your scene done, but then a month later that Airbnb might not be available anymore. So then that's it. But a green screen will always be available to you. So that's one of the benefits about it. But it's still like one of those things you want to ask yourself is, do I want to go through that trial and tribulation of green screen?
Yeah. Right. And it does depend on the different shots you're trying to do. And that's why it's always good to have multiple creative heads talking on the set. Like when you have a production, that's why you have those pre-production meetings, to kind of figure out, okay, what do you think? What's the best way to go about doing this? Should we do it green screen? Should we do it on location? And then you have the people figuring out, well, if we do it here, it's going to cost this much, but if we do it here, it's going to be this. And that's why it's always good to have multiple people to be able to like talk to and help you figure it out, so that you're not just trying to figure everything out on your own, because it's a lot. So, but I agree. Like, it's definitely, if you can, they always say, don't use green screen. If you can do it on location, because it's always going to look better. I think they said Christopher Nolan didn't even use green screen in like Interstellar or something.
Oh, really?
I think that's what I said. Isn't that what they said, Priscilla?
Someone said, yeah, they said that, but I was like, then how did he do it? Because Don't quote us on that yet, because
That's what I was about to ask.
A lot of setups. I
They
saw like
probably use the
Inception had like
projector.
I don't know. He could have a lot of setups and stuff like that too, though, that you can use to once you have a big budget. Because I know in like Inception, it was like an actual room with 4 walls that they were just turning around on like this contraption, which made it look like the room was going upside down. So the actors were actually going all around instead of it just being a visual image. It was 2 things in one. It was like an actual foreground element that was moving around.
The comment on the background acting section about it. What would I say? This doesn't really pertain to background acting. It more or less so Law and Order is one of those shows that I think they've run out of people to use because one of the guys on the show actually was one of the criminals on the show. One of the detectives was actually a criminal on the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, when you do background stuff, I'm pretty sure they can recycle you and use you again. Because I know,
They can do
especially on TV
the
shows.
act-
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
like
but
Game
if
of
you have,
Thrones, there
like-
was a background actor that was in throughout all 8 seasons. He was just somewhere in the background being.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's such a good
Like-
gig. I know.
once you start getting speaking lines, you kind of like become a character, and then it becomes hard. But I do know Law and Order, like the new seasons that are out now. One of the detectives was like on an older episode back, like a few years back. He was one of the bad guys, and I was like, no, and I didn't pay attention to it till I saw the episode. I was like, no, he's the detective now on the show, but then he went to jail. Like, and I was like, oh man.
In real life or on
So
the
that's-
show?
On the show.
Hmm?
On the
No,
show.
no, 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 on the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, you never know,
So
man.
like he's
No.
no. Like they recycled him.
Oh,
Like
that's
so
awesome.
they did it. Yeah, so he was a bad guy in one of the episodes. He was like one of the rapists or whatever. And then like a couple seasons later, he was a detective on the show. And I mean like a main like a lead character on the show. It was the guy with the guy who became the lawyer who's now the district attorney.
Oh.
I don't know.
I'm sure if you know who he is, but
Sure.
yeah, he played one of the bad guys or one of the rapists on the show like 2 seasons before that, and I was like, wait, they've already used him before. They can't use him again, but they are. So like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if he looks different enough and he acts different.
No, he
enough-
doesn't. He looks exactly the same. That's how I recognized him. It was the mustache that was the dead giveaway. I was, he's got the
He didn't-
same mustache and everything. Like, no, they didn't try.
That's
Right.
hilarious.
That's funny, yeah. But yeah, that's why it's always important to try to have somebody on continuity for those things. But TV shows can get very hard to keep track of all the things going on because if it was an
Well,
episode,
and I see the-
you know what I mean? Like it gets
Everybody-
more complicated the longer the show goes on if you were using the same people.
Yeah, and if
But
you think about it this way, Q,
No, I
like,
know, Brian. Like they shouldn't have had that big of a mistake, and they should have made
Yeah,
it
they
look
should've
different.
known, like, yeah, didn't we hire you like a couple years ago? Like, didn't we pay you off? Like, they should have known that was a big no-no. Like, I don't know. I don't think.
oh, it's like, wait, but I don't see, like, honestly, the only people that are going to notice that are like super perceptive people. It's such a minor thing, I would say.
I'm not a perceptive person at all, and I still picked up on it. Like, I.
Yeah.
When it's way too obvious that they're reusing the same actor, then that's just lazy right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
And
They
then
should at least
give the
just
guy
shave his
a haircut
mustache.
I was gonna
Right,
say,
shave his
let's
mustache,
shave his
put some
mustache.
dreads on him or something.
change his
Like,
hair color.
Change his
I
haircut,
can
give him-
understand
change
if
his- shave
they-
his mustache.
If they recycled him and they made him another bad guy or another character, like another, like, not a lead character, but no, they straight up threw him into a lead position. He's like a lead. He's in the intro of the show, and I'm like, but wait a minute, he was a bad guy like 2 seasons ago. You know what I mean? So like, he's already been processed. He's already been to jail. He's already been guilty and everything. So it's like now he's out and about, and he's one of New York City's finest.
They
So I'm
must have
like,
loved him, yeah. They must have really liked him, yeah.
yeah.
They must have liked him so much. They're like, no, you can't change your look. This is how you look. This is your look. Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, does anybody have any questions about the green screen or the other than that, the extras? No? All right. So the last thing, we were gonna have working with new actors, but honestly, a lot of that stuff was the same information. So I think we've already kind of covered it. It's just when you have a new actor, you might want to do some things that you technically shouldn't do with actors. Like if you have a brand new actor, you might want to line read to them to show you how you need it, because they're not going to have that same process. They're not going to have that professionalism of an experienced actor. So you might want to get away with doing some of these things that you wouldn't do with the more experienced actors that have a different process or a different way of doing things. But it's always about the individual, and you know, getting to know them and asking them like what they need from you as a director. So always be aware of what they need from you and try to understand where they're coming from, because everybody's going to be different and everybody's going to have a different process. So even if they're brand new or they're experienced, they might like to be told how to do it. They might like a different way of going about it. They might like being more blunt, or they might like you being a little more sensitive. It just depends on each person. So just keep all that in mind.
Yeah.
But that's it for the new actors. The rest of the stuff was kind of already covered in a previous meeting. So I'm just gonna skip that part and just go straight to this. And this should be pretty quick. We've already kind of gone over this stuff. It's just a little remembrance of hierarchy on set. You got the producers and the executive producers over the director. You got the director, who is kind of Brian's favorite thing. They all go to them. If you can look at this picture right here, you see all these department heads are going to go to that director. He's the next one up. So they're going to be asking him all these questions about, do you like this prop? Do you like this thing? What about this lighting? They always go to him for everything to make sure he's okay with it, since it's his vision or her vision. And it's they're the ones that are telling the story and want it to get out. So the director goes next, and then you got these department heads, and then you have the people underneath the department heads. And this is why they don't go to the director. They should go to their department head, so that there's less questions to go to the director. Since there's so much going on, the director doesn't need the production assistant to come up and ask them what they need to do with this thing or that. Have the production assistant go to someone else, who can then go to someone else and keep going up the chain, so that it doesn't have to reach the director unless nobody knows except for the director. Because there's certain things that the director doesn't even need to know about, certain things that, you know, the director of photography won't need to hear. The camera operator will be able to answer it if he's a different person, or the assistant camera might be able to help. The second assistant AC can ask the first AC, and they might know, instead of them going directly to the director of photography, or even worse, going to the director himself. So that's why this chain of hierarchy is there. It's to make sure that there's a clear line of communication and a clear line of what each person's role is going to be, so that everyone knows what to do, and so that the director and whoever else can focus on their specific jobs and only get questions that are kind of relevant to whatever they're working on. Now on lower productions and lower budget sets, you don't have as many people, so you're not going to have as many people to be able to answer those questions. And that's when you might have more people going directly to the director. But if you can have a director of photography that can answer the questions of all the camera department and the lighting department, and only go to you when they're like, is this good? And you're like, yeah, I like that. And that's how that goes a little bit. It's a little bit better than if the lighting department comes to you and goes, do you want the light over here, over there? And leave all that to the director of photography. But it really depends on your budget and your set. And if you're wearing multiple hats, and if they're wearing multiple hats, then it starts to get a little more confusing for this kind of hierarchy, gets a little more jumbled up. But yeah, does anybody have any questions about that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, and then the last thing, if you have a lot of people, you might want to consider making something kind of like this. It's called a hierarchy organizational chart. And this just kind of shows everybody, here's who you go to first before you go to the next person up if they can't answer your question until you get to this other person up here.
Oh,
That
that's
way, the second AC will go to the first AC, who will go to the camera operator, to the director of photography, to the director, and up the line until they get their answer that they need. So that's called a hierarchy organizational chart. You can make one depending on how big your set is. The more people you have, the more likely you'll probably want something like this so that everyone knows who to go to. Just like when you have extras and you want to make sure they know who they go to ask questions, you want to make sure everyone in your crew knows who they should go to ask questions, so that they can get the answers they need without bothering someone who has to be focusing on something else.
makes sense.
Yeah, you guys need that for yourself.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're gonna have too big of a production set yet, but yeah.
No, I was being funny. I'm talking about you and Priscilla.
Oh. Gotcha. All right, does anybody have any questions or comments?
Negativo.
All right, guys.
I'm
That's
good.
everything for
That's
today.
Perfect. Thanks. Appreciate it as per usual. Oh, quick question. What was the new assignment? Are you sending that? I missed that.
I will email it out. The new assignment's going to be, well, there's two. The scene mimic exercise, but that's not due until August 9th. So it's pretty far out. It's just so you guys can get more time to kind of hone in on it and get it a little better. And then there's the green screen exercise, which is just to kind of get us general sense of how to shoot on a green screen, just so you guys can kind of see like the difficulties involved. So you're not, if you ever do a green screen shot later on, you will know kind of what it entails and what it's going to need. And then we just have the shot list exercise that we gave out last week that's going to be due July 19th as well.
Okay.
And I'll email it all and remind everybody of everything. And you guys let me know if you received the emails. Also, if anybody hasn't already, please respond to the short film email so I can know who's even interested in being a part of it. And I know a lot of you already have. A few of you haven't. So if you guys could, whether if you are or not, I would appreciate an email either way so I can kind of just get a confirmation for either or.
Oh, if you got the email or not?
Yeah, I got your email. I just want to make sure I know like who even would be interested in considering doing it and who wouldn't. And so like I know a lot of you already have, and I appreciate it. But everyone else who hasn't, please say yes or no or however deep you want to get into it, so I can get a general sense for later on. But all right, guys, thank you.
All right.